I grew up on Summit Street. Um, the address was 325 Summit Street, right where Wembley's funeral home is now, which was formerly Greenlee's. And we had a lot of fun going to school. Went to Fair Street School, and we played sports, played outdoor games. Youngsters didn't have too many games inside back then, but we played outdoor games and all with friends. Had a lot of good friends and childhood playmates. My grandparents owned a farm down in Beaucham, Georgia, which is over towards the Anderson, South Carolina area. And we used to spend summers there. My brother and I, he's 2 years older than I am, but we used to spend summers with them and until I got to be about 12 years of age. And that's when I started working. Started cutting grass for a family, the Hamiltons that lived over on Bradford Street Extension. And I cut grass for 35 cents an hour. That was my first job at age 12. And when I got old enough, at 16, I went to work at Swift Poultry because that's where most of my friends, my brother, and most of the teenagers were working in the poultry industry back then. School was good, a lot of fun. Fair Street was a good school. We had a lot of good friends and had some good teachers, some closer than others, but in my 7th grade, the school decided to start assigning a homeroom teacher to each class, and Miss Mattie Moon was my homeroom teacher and began to be my favorite teacher. And she was our homeroom teacher from the 7th grade through the 12th grade, and she was my idol, I guess you may say. She inspired me a lot. She was a great teacher. We had among many, but like I said, and also my coach, E.L. Cabell, who was I guess the person who really inspired me without ever talking to him about it, but just because of the way he lived his life. And he was a great coach at Fair Street. I was a running back, or left halfback, you might say, for the football team in 53 through 55, which I graduated in 1956. We had good teams when I was in school, but like I said, school went on to win 2 state championships in 56 and 57, back to back, which was still a great record for any school in North Georgia. But most of my fun came through playing sports in high school at Fair Street. That was some of the best years that I have memories of back then. Well, when I finished high school, I didn't know what I was going to do for a while. I had some choices, cab driver, military, other things, but I decided during that summer that I wanted to go to college and become a teacher and coach. So I wrote to several schools, and eventually I got a letter from Savannah State. The coach offered me an opportunity to come down and try out for the team, and I went to Savannah State in 56, played 2 years of football. I was a walk-on. I didn't get the scholarship, but I enjoyed that time, and it also helped me because my major was health and physical ed, and I graduated in 60 with a degree in health and PE. Well, after Savannah State years, in 60 I went to Atlanta and got a job. I didn't get a job teaching right away, but I waited tables, worked at a place, 12 Oaks, which was a well-known restaurant in Atlanta back then, and held that job for maybe about 2 years. And eventually in 62, I came back to Gainesville and went to work at Swift Poultry, where I worked as a youngster. And I worked there and became a supervisor. When I left Swift, it was to take a job with the city of Gainesville. The city had advertised, not through news or anything, but kind of quietly, and they were looking for minority police officers. So I applied, and quite a few friends and fellows applied. But when I was eventually hired, and in 63, September of 63, and a friend of mine, but we got to be much closer after that, friend of mine, Ernest Earls, and I were the first 2 minority police officers. We started working in September of 60 and 63. It was a great job. Back then, we were patrol officers. We patrolled the south side of Gainesville. They bought a brand new car for us to patrol in. I guess they weren't, the chief wasn't sure about how we would handle those Fords with the big motors, so they bought a little Plymouth, and but we did the job, and we made out all right. It was a good job in our patrolling, but we also did the same thing that all other police officers did, making arrests, chasing people who were speeding. You know, we worked with the detectives on some of the burglary cases, murder cases, and it was a good experience. Because I grew up in Gainesville, I knew a lot of people. Had to arrest a few old buddies too, but that was a part of the job. But Gainesville was a good place to work, and I think it was based a lot on good relations with people in the community. Not that we didn't have problems, but issues. Well, we didn't have any problems with as far as racism go, but segregation was just a way of life. Then we had friends, both black and white, but we didn't, segregation didn't affect us that much. Gainesville was a different kind of city, I guess, than some others, even during the years eventually when we did get to the time of civil rights movement. Now, Gainesville was not as affected as some cities in the state of Georgia were. But then during the time, I guess, when President Johnson came to Gainesville, that was one of the highlights of our police work, promoting the civil rights bill. And he came to Gainesville. It was a hot day in July, and up on the square at the courthouse, it was a crowd of people. I think it was about 50,000 people in and around that area. And my job was one to be right in the main center around the president there, along with my partner. Both of us were. It was a great experience being security for the president, along with FBI agents and state troopers, everybody that was there. And it was kind of a tough time because young people were demonstrating, and we had to make some arrests during that time. But every time we made an arrest, we also got somebody to sign a bond for those young people. And we had a good friend named Joe over at K Cleaners, and we would call him every time we had to make some arrests, and he would go up and sign the bonds for young people. He was a great citizen and a good friend. I stayed there off and on for 4 years, and during that time I was a substitute teacher at 3 schools: Fair Street, Butler High, and also up at Georgia Industrial Institute at Alto. Eventually at Alto, the Georgia Industrial Institute, the principal offered me a job to teach biology and to coach. My dream job. That's what I really wanted. And like I said, I didn't leave because I didn't like it. But since I had my degree in elementary and in health and physical ed, I wanted to teach school, and that's why I left the city to become a teacher. When I decided to go to school, I think that was the best decision I made. And eventually, after finishing Savannah State, while I was a school teacher at Georgia Industrial Institute, and which I taught biology, coached football, track, and basketball. And I went to the University of Georgia for 4 years as an irregular student during that time, and earned another degree in elementary education, and also learned a lot, which helped me become even a better teacher, I think. Sports was a great character builder, helped to build my life, helped me, I guess, as a young teacher. Sports, though teaching biology, but coaching football, track, and basketball were great parts of my life. Then going to scout teams, going to high school with the high school on Friday nights, and even though in college I didn't play like I did when I was in high school, but that's the way it is. You go from one level to the next. But I played enough to and I learned enough to become I think a pretty good old country coach.